Simcha, celebration, Simcha, Simcha, celebration of life.
Hello and welcome to Simcha, a celebration of life, with me, your host, Aaron Halevi. In today's show, we look at the element of air within Judaism, visit the Nachon Museum of Italian Jewish Art, and conclude our series on Lithuanian legacies. The four elements of earth, water, air, and fire have been part of Jewish thought for centuries. Over the past few months, Rebbetzin Nathalie Levy Riess has been exploring the meaning behind these elements and how they translate into our daily lives. Today, she elaborates on the element of air, which is the source of speech, spiritual meditation, contemplation, and one's intention in praying, as explained within the inner dimensions of the Torah.
Today we're going to talk about the element of air. Air, as we know, is very amorphous, is very abstract, it's all over the place, and yet it's that breath, that hope, that faith, that place in us that always gives us this whisper of keep going, it's okay. And as women, we face so many different things in our lives, so many challenges. We connect to this place in us that whispers, that intuition, it's all going to be okay. When you tell a woman, pray for something or ask for something you really want, I don't believe it's too hard for her to search within and know, how to pray. It's not really taking a prayer book and going, to a synagogue. When you say prayer, it's really talking your heart. It's really talking and whispering your desires and what you want to be, what you want to become. And if you notice, none of the things a woman does is for herself only. We as women, whenever we do something, we do it and it ripples throughout the universe, because that's the power of femininity. Femininity is not just a concise, small thing closed. We are always expanding. In Kabbalah, actually, is explained that a male, is compared to the letter Yud, which is the smallest letter in the alphabet. But it's not because he's small, but because it's a dot. It's like the idea. It's that first thought, that first thing, that concise, precise, drop, dot, idea. A woman is the Hey, which is expansion, which is creation, which is development. So with our personalities and with that feminine part of us, of developers, of becoming, of transforming, that's when we can change the world. We're living now in the end of the 6th millennium, where it's promised that at the end of the 7th millennium, the redemption is going to come. And now we know that in the order of the Sfirot, which are the there are various explanations for what are the Sfirot. So one is sapphire, which is an illumination, and one is Sfirot from Lispor, from counting, and also from a Sipur, from a story. So what's the story of our soul? So it relays, the story tells us that the last Sfira in the tree of life, in the Etz HaChaim, is Malchut, which is majesty, royalty. And this is the feminine Sfira. This is the feminine of all. And why is it? The interesting thing about this Sfira is that she gets the energy from all the other Sfirot. From all the other 9, she gets all the concentration, and then she takes it into the world. So you see that that's almost like the personality of women. We're recipients. We get the energy. We get the energies from our husbands in order to be fruitful, and we get the energies from the world and we turn it into something. We get the energies from the food we buy and we turn it into a meal, and in our families and everything. But in the times of the redemption, that Sfira is going to rule. That's the Sfira that's going to take over the whole entire world, because that Sfira has the power, because she has taken so much for so many years, that now it's the time to reveal it. And now it's the time to go big. And this is my call for all women, that now it's the time to really go big. Now it's the time to connect to your fire, to your dreams, to your desires, to what you always wanted to do, to turn it into something big, to go out in the world. There's no more time to stay behind the scenes or to work like a man. Give your best and work with your woman powers. Use all that feminine powers, because even in this generation, we see that that's the feminine, that's what's ruling, it's the feminine energy. And all this need to learn and to understand and to grab and to grasp, it's all coming from there. The feminine energy, that openness, that need to understand and not to do anything just because someone said so or someone wrote so, but to really understand it from a deeper level, from really, really that intuition, that kind of refinement, I would call it, that comes from the feminine energy. So really, it's about everybody, all women, getting up, doing whatever they dreamt. Everything is out there waiting for all of us to really be the best version of ourselves, because it's the only way to really change the world. And the redemption, when we hear redemption, what does it mean? Someone's going to come. Redemption starts with each and every one of us. The Geulah, that redemption is really redeeming ourselves, redeeming that closed, submissive little woman inside of us. Release her and let her out in a good way, channeled, in a modest way, in a beautiful way, in a majestic way, but let her out, because that's the only way that we can really feel the total redemption of the world. So for you, I wish that you connect to all the 4 elements within you, that you anyways carry with you, that you should connect to that fire, but yet you should be like water. You should flow with what life brings you, because we don't control everything around us. But also be like earth and take everything that life brings you and bring it to fruition with whatever you have. And then always pray and always have that hope that things can always get better.
Welcome back. Founded in Jerusalem in 1983, the Umberto Nahon Museum of Italian Jewish Art was set up to collect, preserve, and display objects pertaining to Jewish life in Italy. This is the only museum of its kind in the world that collects original artistic objects and documentation from Jewish communities throughout Italy. With its unique images and artifacts, the museum's collection recreates the richness of Jewish life in Italy from the Renaissance period through to the present time.
This museum collects items from all over Italy, from synagogue and from different places. It is the only one museum that can be called National Museum of Jewish Italy, because many communities sent items at the beginning of the Italian community in Jerusalem. And so we have items from Rome, from Venice, from Turin, from Rovigo, from Modena, from Mantua. And this is very important because in Italy, each town has a very strong character, and there are differences between one city and one another. And so this is reflected also in the art and in the items we have.
It's really important that in a museum, when you're coming and arriving into the museum, you'll feel the nature of the community, if it's supposed to reflect the community. Right here in the museum, we're trying to show the richness of this community, but I'm talking about not only materialistic richness, but spiritual and the community life. I think in here, it's very important, if someone would like to see the complete picture, it would be great to come first into the museum and to experience the museum, and then to come to the prayers on Friday or Saturday and to experience the community life. It will give you a complete picture of the whole community and all this history, beautiful history of these people who came from Italy. In Italy, we're saying Italy, but of course, if we're looking backwards 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, this community did not identify themselves as Italians. They identified themselves as Phoenicians, as Florence, people from Rome. They're living in cities. Right here in the museum, we're collecting all of them in the basis, the community basis of Judaism. This is the common of all of these. And it's beautiful because it reflects not only the Jews who lived in one place in Italy, but all over Italy, and you can see the whole picture. I would say that this community is one of the ancient communities that kept their connection to Jerusalem. We have the Italians and the Yemenites. They are the two communities for the last 2,000 years and more were in touch in Israel, been visiting here, and had fully connection to Israel, and it's very, very special. And it's important, it's very significant for us.
So in this room we have wooden work, and we have one of the most important items of the museum. This is the Torah Arc Magnificent, you can see it, from the Renaissance Italy, from a town called Mantua in the north of Italy. Mantua was one of the main centers of culture in Europe at the time. And this ark is very special because, first of all, it is the second most ancient, surely dated ark in the world. So there is only one that is a little older, and it is from Modena, and it is on the Jewish Museum in Paris. And this is from Mantua, and it is dated 1543. It is dated because there is an inscription on one of the cathedrals that accompanies this ark. You can see that normally we have the 10 Commandments written in the internal plate of the doors, but here we have a poem that was composed especially for this ark, and it is unique. And it is a poem written in the Cinquecento, in the 16th century way of the time, and it is in Hebrew, of course, and it is a kind of poetic paraphrase of the 10 Commandments. The other important thing that we did restoration 2 years ago, and we discovered that here there was a kind of blue painted, and we discovered that under the blue painted there was silver leaves. This is very, very rare, and you have the richness of the Italian Renaissance because the back was silver and the inscription was in gold. And this is very rare because we have original gold inscription and gold gilding of the ark. Normally, any ark or any item receive another gilding in a later time, but not this ark. So we have here the Renaissance original gilding, and it is very rare and very special. In this room we have manuscripts and prints, and we have, first of all, a huge collection of ketubot, marriage contracts, and you can see a folio production with huge and wonderful decorations. And they come from Ferrara, Mantua, Livorno, Padua, Rome, so it's from everywhere in Italy, and there are different styles. Normally we have, most of the ketubot we have are 19th century and 18th centuries. One of the most, I can say, famous is that of Livorno because of its depiction of Jerusalem. And you can see them, like the Dome of the Rock. And it was a convention at this time to depict the temple as a Templum Domini from the Latin that was identified in the Middle Ages with the Temple Rock, so mistakenly. And so also this mistaken iconography enters the Jewish iconography, and so we can see it also, the influence of the environment and the cultural context. Of course, they are typical Italian ketubot with an arc decoration. There is also always an architectural motifs that encloses the text, and then there are also small decoration with the zodiac, with biblical scenes. Normally, the the biblical scenes are chosen according to the name of the family. If you have Rebecca or Rivka, you have a story of Rebecca or Esther or Isaac or Moshe or Moses, so and so. But not always. And another kind of interesting characteristic of Italian decoration is the presence of the items coming from the temple and the menorah, but also the altar, the censer, or all the items are depicted in the ketubot. You find in the silver items, embroidered everywhere. This is a specific trait of Italian Jewish art.
Actually, the people who came to Italy and Jews were actually moving from one place to the other. And they moved, and finally, most of the people find themselves somehow in Italy. When they arrived to Italy, they lived there, they've been there, and then they came to Israel. So, for example, people from Libya, the Jews from Libya who arrived to Italy, they call themselves as Libyan Italian Jews. I would say a lot of people, Italian people, arrived to Israel. I can't tell you if the majority or minority, but I can tell you that there is great communities back there in Italy that still exist and live their Jewish life. So in every city that you'll go, you'll see a Jewish Italian museum, which belong to the community of this place. I can't tell you, I think most of them made Aliyah, but I can't tell you, I'm not for sure about the percentage. I can tell you that most of the people who made Aliyah about 75, 80 years ago, they were Zionists, truly Zionists, who came around here into Israel. It was hard to be here. A lot of them abandoned a life of richness with all prosperity. They decided to come here since they really wanted to be here. And these are the people, religious people. By the way, most of the Italian Jewish people are religious people. When I'm saying religious, I'm talking about they're Orthodox.
In Lithuania and Russia during the 1800s, there were various reactions to the intellectual movement of Haskalah, or Jewish Enlightenment. The yeshiva movement was one response, and the other was the Mussar movement, which had deep roots within the Jewish people. Both these movements were used to combat the ravages of assimilation and lighten the terrible burden of poverty and persecution that Jews were suffering in Europe. It gave the Jews in these countries the added spiritual dimension of engaging with Jewish ethics and ethical behavior.
Our wonderful South African Jewish community has its roots in Lithuania. More than 80% of South African Jews emanate from that place in Eastern Europe. It's important we understand the makeup and the nature of Lithuanian Jewry, and that gives us a great insight into the very unique Jewish community here in South Africa. In the year 1840, one of the rabbinic leaders of the Jews in Lithuania, Rabbi Sackstein, came up with a novel and very innovative idea, something he called the Mussar change, the Mussar movement. Mussar means character development, means a focus on developing one's character. Up until that point, it was almost obvious and self-explained that any Jewish person that was working on themselves, that was observing the Jewish religion, was doing it in order to develop their character, in order to become a more noble, refined human being. That was given and almost the ABC of one's life as a Jew. However, said Rabbi Sackstein, as the influences of the 19th century began to take hold in Eastern Europe, that understanding and knowledge was being lost. That basic overall perspective was dissipating from within the psyche of the Jewish community. And therefore said Rabbi Sackstein, it's very important that we emphasize this point. We emphasize the core value of Torah observance, of Jewish life, that is to improve ourselves as human beings. The way one would go about doing that and emphasizing this important value would be to learn the classic works of Musa, the classic works of character development. And Rabbi Yisrael Salanta then went upon a mission, almost a revolution in Lithuania, making sure that communities, and in particular the yeshivot, would understand this new approach and would emphasize the importance of developing one's character. Rabbi Yisrael Salanta managed to succeed in spreading these ideas of Musa. And the Musa revolution did to Lithuanian Jewry what the Hasidic revolution did to Polish Jewry. Really galvanized the community and emphasized the importance of working on oneself and one's character. Working on one's character means that we identify within ourselves those inner workings of our personality, that we have a desire for power, we have an appetite for passion and for pleasure, and we have anger, and we have laziness, all of these different qualities within us. The Muslim movement emphasized the importance of detecting those inner workings and learning self-control, developing our good character, and controlling our weak character. The Muslim movement succeeded in building very great people, very holy people, very noble people. And many Jews that lived in Lithuania and saw Lithuania, that have come to South Africa, have said, one in particular, there was a famous rabbi known as the Ponevezh Rav. The Ponevezh Rav had a yeshiva in the town of Ponevezh. He was the leader in the town of Ponevezh. He was even part of the government, the Lithuanian government. He escaped just before the Nazis invaded. In fact, he got out with one of his sons and was arranging papers for his wife and 9 children that he left behind, and he didn't get them out in time, which was a great tragedy. He arrived in Israel. He built up the great Ponevezh Yeshiva in Israel that is still there today. He would often come to South Africa, and his comments about the South African Jewish community were that even though the community that came from Lithuania to South Africa pretty much lost its ethos in Torah learning and Torah observance, it maintained its focus on character, on good character, and on kindness, compassion, and the importance to grow as a human being. And he said, the Torah will come back. The Torah, the observance of Torah and the study of Torah will return, since the character and the nature of Lithuanian Jewry has been maintained by the South African community. And his words were almost prophetic, because we've seen a tremendous return here in South Africa towards observance and towards the study and the practice of the Torah laws in our community in South Africa. There must be over 25,000 what we call Balei Tshuva, people that have returned to observance. And the uniqueness and the character of the South African Jewish community stems from the great Muslim movement of Rabbi Yisrael Salanta. This emphasis on building one's character and being a noble human being has certainly followed the Jews, the Lithuanian Jews, to South Africa, and has resulted in the building of a wonderful, homogeneous, very united community that still has a great focus on developing oneself spiritually and on behavior in a kind and compassionate way.
Well, that's all we have for this week's episode of Simcha, a celebration of life. As always, we'd love to hear from you, so please send us a message on Facebook at Spirit Sister Productions. From me, Aaron Halevi, and the rest of the Simcha team, have a wonderful week ahead.